Good morning, and thank you for being here. It's going to be a scorcher of a day today, so let's kick off today's Mayoral Forum 2023, Building Nashville's Equitable and Resilient Future. I'm Carol Pettigo, Executive Director, the American Institute of Architects, Middle Tennessee Chapter. AIA Middle Tennessee aspires to be an inclusive community of architects that advocates for the highest quality of life by shaping the built environment. As a local community of architects, AIA Middle Tennessee pursues goals aimed at serving as the collective voice of architects and the architecture profession to the community, the public, and legislative audiences. AIA members work together with business leaders, civil servants, allied professionals, and the public to improve our communities and the land on which we build. We want to use our stage to help convene these partners to ensure our community continues to thrive for centuries to come. Now, please allow me to introduce one of our most exciting and newest strategic partners, Dean Jennifer Amundsen. She is the Dean of the O'Moore School of Architecture and Design at Belmont University, Nashville, Tennessee.
Thank you so much, Carol. As you said, I'm Jennifer Amundsen, and it is such a delight to welcome you all here on behalf of the O'Moore College as well as Belmont University. Both the university and college are committed to these kinds of community partnerships and bringing diverse people together to talk about and hopefully solve the big, hairy issues that we face here in Nashville and the world beyond. The O'Moore College is about 5 years old here at Belmont. We have programs in fashion design and merchandising, interior design, and our newest program is in architecture. It's on schedule to be accredited in 2025. And each of our three programs is committed to community service, social impact, and ensuring that our students are going to be equipped to be positive agents of change in their futures. We know that no disciplines can work individually, and so it's so wonderful to bring together such a diverse group of people to talk about the city that we love and to hear from our mayoral candidates, because of course the partnership here between governance and practice and education is so key to a prospering future. Just to conclude, I want to say that one of the primary ideas that we have behind all of our programs at O'Moore is to equip our students and work with partners to make the world more beautiful and more just. And so I'm so eager to hear how this conversation unfolds. Thank you all.
Good morning, and thank you for being here today. I'm Jennifer Carlett, the Executive Director of ULI Nashville, and it's so wonderful to see so many folks out to hear this conversation. I get the joy of thanking Jennifer and the O'Moore College and Belmont University for hosting us today. Can we all extend our thanks to them? Jennifer and I were joking that once you have the venue, lots of other things fall into place, and this has been a terrific venue to work with, so thank you so much. ULI Nashville is a membership-based group of 900 Middle Tennesseans who work in all the occupations related to growth, development, and real estate. We are shaping the built environment to have transformative impact on communities, and we are particularly focused on increasing attainable housing, accelerating decarbonization and net zero, and educating the next generation of diverse leaders. And it's with those mission priorities that I also get to explain how it's been such a great partnership with the Cumberland River Compact and AIA Middle Tennessee. A lot of folks have asked about this group of three, and I think when you hear about each of the organizations and the overlap, the Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap there. I think the other piece that overlaps our groups is that we are all committed to the public-private partnership that I think really is one of the secret sauces for Nashville. And so bringing it all together today and around the theme of equity and resilience makes a lot of sense for our organizations. And I'll end with the idea that among our groups, we do not see competition between a healthy economy and a commitment to a healthy environment. In fact, we think that they're lockstep and that they have to grow together. So welcome you all today, and I'm going to hand it over to Mikhail.
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm Mikhail Houghton, Executive Director of the Cumberland River Compact, and we have a mission on the books, but I'm going to tell you today that our true mission is to ensure that Nashville and Middle Tennessee has a clean and abundant supply of fresh water. The fresh water, I believe, is what's fueling our economy. People are moving here from water-scarce environments, from flooding environments, and now from fire environments. So I think it's critical that we all understand the foundation of our water and our clean water to the economy. So I get the privilege of introducing the moderator for today, Amanda Little. Amanda is a columnist for Bloomberg and a professor of journalism and science writing at Vanderbilt University. Amanda has written about energy, technology, and the environment for the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wired, Rolling Stone, and the New Yorker. She has interviewed politically diverse figures from Barack Obama to Lindsey Graham, and has been interviewed by journalists including Terry Gross and Faraz Zakaria. Her recent TED Talk, Climate Change is a Problem You Can Taste, has more than 1 million views. Amanda is the founder and executive director of Kidizzenship, a media...
Kidizzenship.
Kidizzenship.
That was like a softball setup for my marketing pitch.
Kidizzenship, a media platform for students interested in civics and politics. So please join me in welcoming Amanda.
Thank you so much, Mikhail. Welcome, distinguished audience. Thank you so much to our hosts and sponsor, Belmont University, and to our dedicated organizers, American Institute of Architects, Middle Tennessee, Cumberland River Compact, and ULI Nashville, and to our brave mayoral candidates. Wow. You are past what, like mile 20 in this marathon, and it has taken such a great measure of civic passion and stamina to make it through so many campaign commitments and umpteen other forums. I was trying to count, and it was impossible. But really, it's an honor and a true pleasure to share this stage with you. And I have watched, as I just mentioned, many of your previous mayoral forums, and rarely have I seen this collection of 10 candidates on the stage together. And I really appreciate that. It shows how committed you are to the topic of sustainability, which is deeply tied to pretty much every other issue: social justice, public health, education, urban beautification, and of course, economic growth. But it's so gravely overlooked. And it just means a great deal that you are all here and showing up to share your vision on climate and environmental resilience and sustainable development in Nashville. Now is an urgent time for this conversation. The mercury is rising, both inside this campaign, this election process, and quite obviously outside this building, and we might also say inside this building. A little warm in here. Feel free to take the jackets off if you get a little sweaty. But really, the pressures of climate change are taking a toll on our city and every city worldwide. It is also, though, a powerfully hopeful time. Opportunities to mitigate and adapt have never been greater, and we have a lot to discuss. Let me say that I have met a number of you before this forum, but I have no ties to any campaigns. The organizers and I have been rigorous about evenly dividing the airtime and the questions among you fairly and equally. And I made it very clear, people who know me, I'm a big hugger, and I made it very clear when we came in, this is a hug-free zone. No hugging, no preferential treatment. Here's how the conversation is going to work. The questions for today's forum were created by our wonderful co-hosting organizations, and we will progress through some key topics, starting with a vision for Nashville, moving on to land use and open space, moving on to resilience and climate hazards, moving into organizational management, into state, regional, and federal relationships, into infrastructure, transit, and energy, and then ending with attainable and income-based housing. We will have a mix of lightning round and short answer questions. Some questions will be asked to all the candidates, and others will be asked to a subset of candidates. The candidates were seated at random and were selected at random to answer these questions. To qualify for this forum, I know you all are very familiar with, you were asked to complete pretty exhaustive pre-forum questionnaires and meet with the 3 organizations, and all of you completed these steps. Each question will have a time limit, and I will announce that with the questions. And at the front here, there are indicators for how much time is left, and a light that may or may not, we think, will illuminate when your time is up. So, without further ado, the opening lightning round, and we will start with you, Jim. Actually, I'm so sorry. I do want to introduce these wonderful people. So let's do that. We are joined today by the following candidates: Jim Gingrich, former executive at AllianceBernstein; Alice Rowley, former Tennessee State Economic Development official for Governor Bill Haslam; Matt Wilshire, former Metro Economic Development official; Jeff Yarborough, Tennessee State Senator; Natisha Brooks, retired educator; Sharon Hurt, Metro at-large council member; Stephanie Johnson, community activist; Heidi Campbell, Tennessee State Senator; Freddie O'Connell, Metro Council member; and Vivian Wilhoit, Davidson County Assessor of Property. So there is a wealth of experience and credentials on this stage. And acknowledging that, and given that this is often a topic that people feel a bit alienated from, I would like to request your permission to address you by your first names. Keep this nice and friendly and colloquial. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Everybody's okay with that. So, without further ado, Jim, you already got the primer here. We are going to start with a 20-second opening lightning round. And the question is this: what is your boldest idea to make Nashville more sustainable and resilient?
Is that a stopwatch?
It is. And I will say, I know I'm taking up some crucial seconds here, but
I want to restart, but
I coached kindergarten soccer, and they never gave me a stopwatch. So this is like I finally arrived at the job I've always. Here we are, folks. I got a stopwatch. So yes, whether or not I can actually use it and keep you on time is another thing altogether. But I feel great. So Jim, over to you.
okay, look, there are so many technologies that are coming to market that are really, really interesting in terms of improving sustainability, whether or not that is coating asphalt that actually reduces the heat retention, whether or not that's doing things with our roofs, solar. All of these things are super exciting and stuff that we should be pursuing as a city.
Thank you. Alice.
Yeah, I would say 2 things: managing our city's finances so that we don't have to do things like try to sell through a 99-year lease Fort Negley or the Edmondson Home Park, which is a block away and is now an urban arboretum. So manage the finances so that we can keep our parks.
Thank you.
We will significantly increase Metro's solar power as a source of energy to reduce the carbon footprint. But the boldest, that's already happening, we'll accelerate it. But the boldest idea is to dramatically increase composting to keep food waste out of the landfills.
So I think the first bold idea there is I really want us to be an economic leader in this space where we are creating the markets for reclamation, for recycled materials, for alternative energy, so that we have all incentives pushing in the right direction. And then from a governance perspective, making sure that we're making sustainability across all sectors of government.
Thank you.
As a scientist, I'd like to focus on air quality in transit, making sure that the transit that we decide to use is focused on good air quality control. And then because I'm an educator, STEM programs with our partners here in our public schools.
Thank you.
My decision may not be bold, because I think we need more diversity like I have on my campaign staff with some young, brilliant, energetic young folk.
Thank you.
So you can check out my blog on my site called The Ecological Revolution of Nashville. Also, electric buses. We can turn all our school buses to electric, our new fire truck electric, sidewalks that power the city, rooftop gardens all over downtown, and 100% carbon-free city.
This is a big question for 20 seconds, so please go to my website, voteheidicampbell.com, for my policy plan. But an office of sustainability, smart city technology, overhauling our city processes to increase efficiency, and then transit, trash, and energy efficiencies.
Thank you.
Based on the renewable portfolio standard I helped lead the creation of 4 years ago, we already have Metro's first net zero energy building. We have a plan to go solar for all of Metro within 3 years. We will also build an actual transit system.
Hi, I'm Vivian Wilhoyd. I said we need to identify a food recycling center. I believe that we need to continue to build more LEED qualified buildings. And of course, we need to make sure that the Bordeaux landfill is not expanded.
Thank you, Vivian. Everybody stayed under 20 seconds. I mean, you are pros at this point, so you're making it easy for us. Thank you. Okay, we're going to actually give you a chance to expand on that a little bit with some preamble. So we're moving into the long-range planning question. And we have two of these, and they will both be 30 seconds each, and everybody will respond. And beyond that, we'll move into the more targeted questions. Nashville has reached the point where we need a cohesive vision for our future, one that focuses on how we achieve great livability and affordable housing, real and efficient mobility, quality of life, enhanced cultural attractions, beautiful outdoor spaces, and well-designed buildings throughout the city. As mayor, how will you grow an economically vibrant city that is also environmentally sustainable? So we know sometimes those seem like competing interests, and so we want to sort of get further into that. So we're going to start sort of now right to left with you, Vivian, and ending with Jim, 30 seconds each.
First, thank you for allowing me to be here today. Amanda, we're brave, we're courageous, but also some people think we're crazy for running for mayor. But I want to just say that how we would do that is bringing everyone to the table. It is the time that we must talk these issues out. I'm not a mayor that knows everything, but I'm going to have the best and the brightest at the table. And I know that the best and the brightest is here in this room. So I will be employing you to help me make these right decisions, and I look forward to working with you.
We've never had a plan as impressive as Nashville Next, and it's coming up on 10 years old. I see Lucy Kemp in the audience, and I've been working with her for the past 8 years to refine and update the downtown code and the bonus height program that's led to more LEED certified buildings in any part of the city. We're going to keep doing a lot of what we've been doing, but we're also going to refresh Nashville Next, including the amount of public input we had.
Thank you.
So this is a value system question. When we prioritize tourism, we did a really good job at improving tourism in our city. We need to prioritize sustainability, and that comes with catalyzing communication between nonprofits and departments that are already doing this work, and also implementing efficiencies because we have a lot of redundancy and we need to streamline our processes.
We can start by how we're building and thinking about the environmental impact that it's putting on our city. We talk about density a lot, but the recent sustainability committee said that smaller homes are actually better for our environment. We also had the sustainability committee also recommended a task force. So as soon as I get into office, we'll have a task force and we'll start rolling out those recommendations.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back at my alma mater here at Belmont. And I was here a couple of months ago with Professor Barry Billinger and some of his bright and amazing students. And I see Dr. Robert Wingfield here. I believe our human resources are our greatest resources. We have programs and we have people that can make sure we get it done. I have recommended people on the sustainability committee for the mayor. I know people, I know how to get it done, and I will deliver in doing so using the resources that we have.
I'm Datisha Brooks. chemistry major. I graduated, thank you, Lottie, from Prairie View A&M University. Let's talk trash. Bordeaux area, methane gas, that's CH4, 1 carbon, 3 hydrogens, carbon, the universal element of chemistry. We need to make sure that we're not only focusing on just one area, but focusing on areas like Bordeaux to make sure that we move trash in a feasible direction out of their area.
First, I think we have to reject the notion that these are competing goods. There's not most Fortune 500 companies, and certainly the ones that will still be Fortune 500 companies 50 years from now, recognize that sustainability and economic development and prospects go hand in hand. As how we do that in a city, I think we've got to make sure that our planning doesn't get siloed, where we've got a green, sort of a sustainability plan over here and a solid waste plan, and then an economic development plan or transit plan that don't link up. We've got to make sure that those plans are working in unison.
Thank you.
So there hasn't been much debate on these stages over the last several months, but I guess maybe here's a point of debate. I don't think we can just reject the idea that sustainability goals compete. There are choices. It is more expensive. It requires upfront investment. We have to acknowledge that. We can't just ignore it. But it is about our priorities. And we should prioritize the long-term sustainability of our city. To do that, we need to make long-term investments. Now, the economics are improving on solar and other forms of renewable energy. It is important to make sure that we're making long-term sustainable investments and not overspending, which takes dollars away from other things. That's just the facts.
Thank you.
I'm glad, Amanda, that you and I first met with our first graders learning how to read in Metro Nashville Public Schools. That is a theme in my campaign, so I'm glad to be back here. But Freddie and I first met working on Nashville Next. And he's right, we do need to bring that back to the people. But we also, in the next mayoral administration, need to be bold and courageous to, when our citizens give us input on plans, to stand firm on those plans. We built a beautiful plan to play, and then we basically rejected it to give away public parkland. When we ask citizens for their input, we've got to listen.
So I also don't think that growth and quality of life are mutually exclusive. In fact, they are integral. They go together, because what drives growth, economic growth in a city, is the talent that exists in the city. And what's going to keep people here, what's going to attract people here, is the quality of life. That means you do need to make investments in infrastructure like sewer and stormwater, affordable housing, transit, parks, greenways, and the like.
Thank you. So Jeff and Matt got to this point, and many of you have already touched on it. The hitch is cost. And according to government data, designing for environmental resilience saves long-term $4 to $7 for every dollar spent on sustainable design strategy. But generally speaking, it's often more costly and or time-consuming upfront to grow sustainably, right? Even if there are substantial paybacks over time. So we're going to actually come back to right to left. We're going to come back to Vivian, 30 seconds each. The question is, what are the costs you are and are not willing to incur for sustainable development? Vivian.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was going that direction. Forgive me. Well, the cost that I would not want to incur is if it runs upon the fact of disallowing for employees to be paid competitively. I think that we need to be balanced in reference to the approach to cost, and investment is very important. As you've heard my colleagues talk about the investment in Nashville Next and Plan to Play, those are the costs that we must look towards to putting into those plans and making them happen. But we have to make sure that we keep our Metro employees paid competitively to make the city run well.
Thank you.
Amanda, this is exactly why we worked on stronger green building standards for Metro. Metro is a long-term investor in the city. We're not a build and flip. We're not a quick build and get out investor. We can sustain the upfront costs because we are already achieving on the green building standards we had before my work to strengthen them and since cost reductions in utilities, and that lets us reinvest in better performance going forward. We will continue to do that.
Thank you.
Guys, this is an all hands on deck emergency. We're in the middle of the Anthropocene era, and we do not have time to haggle about the costs because we have to consider the opportunity costs, and that's livability. And so there are a lot of efficiencies that we can implement to save money, and we need to do that. But that having been said, we need bold action several yesterdays ago on this.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's interesting that we always bring up costs when it comes from our environment and our housing, but when it comes to like play, Titan stadiums and things like that, let's throw all of our money at it because it could bring money back, but research says that's not true. And so in my Office of Assessment, we'll be assessing the incentives and assessing the impact it'll have on our city to change over things to environmentally friendly. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think proper planning prevents poor performance. We do need to put charging stations in for electric vehicles and those kinds of things, but I think the cost is really in the people. When we have the environmental justice that we have, and we have been causing lives, when you don't include the people in the decisions that are being made in regards to our designs and the projects that we have, it's costly. Even when we do Nashville Next and other plans, not including people who it actually affects is where we end up with the greatest cost.
Thank you.
Natisha for Nashville.com is my website. I'd like to tap into some of the EPA grant funding that is available as of February of this year, 2023. Approximately $275 million is available. As long as it's not going to the taxpayers, because we have a lot of things that's going on, evictions, high eviction rate. We need to make sure that it's not passed to the taxpayer. So our office will be going towards and applying for grants.
So the costs that we have to be willing to bear are, if there are increased short-term costs that are important for resilience, I think those do pay off. Think about how much of our landfill space is actually just occupied by what came out of the Nashville flood, for an example. There's a lot of things where this is actually saving us money in the long term. The cost that I don't want to bear is where we are when we use sort of more punitive measures to force our citizens into good behavior quicker, because I think we're trying to build a more sustainable coalition across the city to support this.
I mean, it's tough to answer your question specifically. The key to each of these very serious decisions is properly pricing in the externalities. That's what the market does not do. And Heidi sort of alluded to this. There are huge impacts that the cost, as it's printed on an invoice, do not reflect. And so as mayor, I will make sure that we are properly pricing in the long-term environmental and human impacts of short-term decision-making to get a better answer on each investment opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, so working both at the federal and the state level, I think it's pretty clear that the federal government is the largest market maker when it comes to both the sort of the market of costs of energy and making it more affordable for cities to be able to do that. So 2 examples, both TVA, Senator Alexander was the chair of the TVA caucus, and then with Governor Haslam, we saw when our state took a bet in the polysilica market that we weren't ready for, we actually wasted a lot of state taxpayer dollars. So pay attention to where the federal government is helping us and find our own matching funds to leverage those.
So economists do talk about this issue of free good, and we do live in a capitalistic society, in which case it is really the job of the mayor and the administration to be on the other side of the table negotiating hard for the people who live in our city. That is what needs to happen. There's too often where I hear that we're letting people get by, not thinking about what the overall water runoff is going to be, how it's going to impact various neighborhoods. That is the type of thing that we need to ensure that it gets done.
Well, we blew through the big picture stuff. Thank you for all of those insights. And we're going to move on to land use and open space. And this actually is for the whole group. So Vivian, you get a break. We're going to go back to Jim, and we're going to go with this question. How will you build alliances between the development and environmental constituencies to create solutions? Please provide a specific case where this type of collaboration between often competing interests will make Nashville stronger. Jim.
I'm not sure I fully understood the question. Could you just repeat it for a sec?
Yeah, so we're wanting to know how you'll build alliances between the development and environmental constituencies to create solutions.
Well, look, I do think there's a natural tension between a development community and trying to preserve the things that impact our quality of life. I really just think it is about being willing to take a hard stand that we need, if we're going to grant somebody an exemption on a zoning, that we are actually letting them foster the investment that's necessary to keep that overall project sustainable for the city as a whole and maintain our quality of life.
Thank you, and you kept right to the 30 seconds. It is 30 seconds on this answer too. Alice, over to you.
I'll give as an example, the Cumberland River Compact's very first certified river farm is our family's farm. And in business school, actually wrote the financing plan to do that in an economically sustainable way. And that took allowing the public to come on our family's farm in part, and many of you probably do at Green Door Gourmet, so that we could retain and save and build what the Army Corps of Engineers called the largest privately permitted project in the country for riverbank stabilization.
Thank you.
So I'll point to my campaign as the first example. Some of you have attended other forums know that there are 3 priorities that I'm running on: public education, public safety, and quality of life. We created policy committees that included dozens of folks in the community to inform those. And the Quality of Life Committee, which talks a lot about investing in parks and greenways and open space and transit and affordability, itself, that committee is made up of folks from the development community, the parks community, the sustainability community. I'm doing it in my campaign and will continue that as mayor.
Thank you.
So I think the way the mayor builds alliances and maintains them is one of the most important things in that you do is in leading the city. I think there are numerous opportunities where this happens and should happen. You can see it in development where where many people who are building in residential spaces want to make sure that you have greenway access, want to make sure that you have park access. We need to be more intentional about fostering those alliances there so that we are building broader alliances to think about the larger issues that extend beyond those particular developments.
Thank you.
Senator Bill Frist said in the Civics Design book, Nashville, a healthy choice. It's the right choice. It's the right choice that we need to focus on our clean water. And as mayor, I'd like to be that liaison between us and the state because there's friction right now between Davidson County and the state, and to work with our congressmen to get money from the Clean Water Fund Act to make sure that Nashville, the clean water is one of our healthy choices, as Senator Bill Frist suggested.
Thank you.
So when I was in high school, my friend asked me, was I going to major in engineering? I told her, no, I don't want to drive a train. So that lets you know how much I know about engineering. But I know people. And I built a great gateway to heritage on Jefferson Street. And I put people together because Tennessee State and Belmont taught me about persistence and excellence. One is about time and the other one is about quality. So I put HUD, TSU, the Edge Group, MDHA, State of Tennessee, Metro Public Works, and 5 small minority women-owned businesses to create a space that is now utilized that had been not used at all.
Stephanie.
So I've been a part of the intentional building community, and I think when we think about partnerships in the community, we think about a rich man building a big skyscraper or big dense buildings. I think about the woman who transformed her blighted community and put gardens in it. I think about the South Nashville Sustainability Group that bought land to build affordable, low-income affordable housing. I think about the guy who's using 3D printing to make homes. So community problems need community solutions.
I think Nashvillians are feeling detached from our environment, from our government. We don't have a communication. And so I see the Office of the Mayor as a venture catalyst, not a venture capitalist, but a venture catalyst to facilitate communication between nonprofits and schools and the community and to connect opportunity with need. And I think that's the key to all of this, is making sure that we're facilitating communication.
Thank you.
For 8 years, this is what we've already been doing in District 19, and I'm excited to keep doing it. We had a great coalition of citizen-led design that resulted in a transformed 12th Avenue South just a few blocks away that continues down from this intersection into the Gulch. The Gulch is the first LEED certified neighborhood in the city of Nashville, and it brought together private and public sectors completely. We have a transformed Midtown on the way thanks to a coordinated effort between planning and our private sector. I know we have a lot of LEED APs here in the room. They're all excited to do great work for the city.
Thank you.
Listen, it takes communication, communication, communication. As a two-term council person, many of the things when you talk about competing interests had to do with neighborhoods not understanding what's going on downtown. And when downtown wants to develop and get more money, they want to not think about neighborhoods. We have to communicate, folks. We have to come down from our throne and help people in our neighborhoods understand why this is important.
Thank you. We are going to go to some smaller group questions. The first is for Vivian, Stephanie, Alice, and Natisha. You have 45 seconds to answer. And the question is this: how will you prioritize and fund open space acquisitions, including those within Nashville's Highland Rim Forest? Alice, we'll start with you.
Well, this is an area that I think that we do need to work carefully with the state. The highest point in Davidson County today is called Ganier Ridge at Radnor Lake, and that's named for my great-grandfather. It is not a city park, it's a state park. And it is from an era when we worked constructively with our partners at the state. And I think we've got to get back there. There are many allies in West Tennessee with the Hatchie River and the work that Ford is doing there, in the Duck River in Murray County and their watershed. There are many allies across state government looking to increase our area of land spaces. And I think that we've got to start with the folks with the biggest budget. They've got $55 billion a year and less debt than we do. We've got $3.5 billion.
Thank you. Vivian.
Prioritizing our open space acquisition starts with the need. And we have to know that the small price that we would pay to have clean air and have a great environment is important. So when you think about that prioritization, we start there with the need and we begin there and we work our way back. So that's how I will work with prioritizing the open space and utilizing the great minds here in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Yes, so I was recently at the council meeting with the Highland Forest Group. I'm very impressed with their work, and in their assessment, they talk about how they can fund their $6 million ask request, and it's through private funding and public funding. And so the groups have already come up with the plan. We as a city just have to get behind them and make sure that they have what they need.
Thank you. And Natisha?
Nashville, a healthy choice, the right choice. I talked with the lady this morning, Miss Susan, who educated me on Highland Rim Forest. And my answer to that is to make sure that we ensure the grants from the EPA, air quality grants, and to work with our state legislature to get funding and make sure that it is in their budget. You have to talk to people like the state senator sitting next to me to make sure that it's in the budget, State of the State Union next year, to make sure that our parks and our forests are well protected.
Thank you. We are moving on to the next small group question. This is for Jeff, Sharon, and Jim. And you have 45 seconds to answer. And there will be some time at the end, by the way. If there are questions that you don't get and you want to address them at the end, you will get a chance to do that. The question is, ensuring environmental resilience means making tough decisions about where to allow development. Precedent has been set for development in the floodplain, ridges, and steep slopes, despite the risks posed by increasingly extreme weather. How will your administration manage those risks? We're going to go to you, Jim, and then Jeff, and then Sharon.
So we haven't updated our zoning code in, I think, something like 25 years. And so in the absence of that, I think it's logical that we've really put our planning department in a tough situation because you kind of default to precedent that's already been set. We need to go back and put some fresh thinking into our zoning code so that we're not putting folks inside of the administration in such a tough situation. So that would be a priority in the first year.
Thank you.
So this has been an issue that's been a passion of mine for quite some time. I actually ran into someone today who used to work at TDEC and now works on sustainability issues in the city and have been working to try to break down barriers between state and local governments, between local governments across regions, and perhaps most importantly, across agencies. Right now, a lot of our resilience planning is really just disaster focused. Like it is, we really wait for something bad to happen and then rebuild better. We've got to incorporate resilience planning much earlier and across the pathways in city planning, city development. And yes, you can't just kind of let the future happen to us, but that means you have to be much more aggressive and intentional in planning.
Thank you.
I do believe in resilience. I drove a car for a year without reverse, so I know how to be resilient. But I do think that what we have to do is ensure. Oh, by the way, let me just say that ULI gave Gateway to Heritage an award for what it is that we did with that project. But I believe what Jim says is true. Not only do we have to go back and look at our zoning codes, we have to enforce them, and that's why we'll have accountability and enforcement and efficiency office. And we also going to have to go back to our charter. I know that I have been working with ESRI, who is a national organization that does GIS, that outlines those environmental injustices, and start there to fix the things that are wrong, and then give us an idea of the things that we need to do in order to make sure that we don't make those same mistakes.
Thank you. We are moving on to the topic of resilience and climate hazards. I'm really getting a hang of this time clock. I'm going to use it with my children. We are moving on to resilience and climate hazards. And we're going to do a lightning round with all of you, 15 seconds each. And we're going to start with you, Vivian, and go down to Jim. The question is this. Let's consider the previous mayoral administration's actions to address climate change. What has been the most successful achievement that you think is worth building upon? Vivian.
And the most successful achievement I would think building upon is in reference to ensuring that we continue with development of LEED type buildings. We have to start somewhere in reference to what we're already doing. And I want to borrow that from my children too as well.
Thank you. Freddie.
We built a multi-kilowatt-hour community solar project on a reclaimed landfill, and we have a ton of capacity to do more of that. This helps with energy security, so we avoid things like the Christmas brownout we had just last year, and it helps us build our own energy supply sustainably.
Thank you. Heidi?
Participatory budgeting, because I think it's very important that we get community support and buy-in to all of these initiatives. As a small town mayor, I found out what happens when you don't do that, and I can tell you that it's something that's very crucial.
Thank you. Stephanie?
So Mayor Cooper's administration put out I guess he created the Sustainability Committee, and then now their recommendations of creating the task force, I think was some really good work.
Thank you.
I would agree. I think the Sustainability Committee was the most effective thing because we got input from all of its people. But I also like the way the Music City Senate started out with the LEED credentialed buildings and made sure that it went throughout the other departments that were built.
The Sustainability Committee, however, I want to make sure that the emphasis is not just on downtown or Broadway, that all communities involved, Antioch, North Nashville, Bordeaux, are included in the conversations going forward.
Thank you.
I think probably the biggest gain to build upon is the investment in solar that Freddie mentioned. I also think the constant thing that they have kept up but needs to be accelerated is the electrification of the fleet of Metro.
Thank you.
Yeah, the solar panels definitely is. I'm going to take one, though. I talk about public-private partnerships. The PACE legislation actually enables private sector to put sustainable development in a more affordable way. So it's got to be the public sector and the private sector, so solar panels and PACE.
Thank you.
In my neighborhood of Edge Hill, the number of trees that have been planted both on public land and on private land through Root Nashville and the Nashville Tree Foundation is pretty incredible, and it is a reversal of the prior administration cutting the trees down on our public parks. So I would continue to do that.
I'll give you three. Two have been mentioned: the electrification of the fleet in WeGo. The solar thing is big, needs to be built on. And then lastly, I'd say a commitment to expanding the greenways.
Thank you. The next question is for Heidi, Matt, and Freddie. And the question is this. Given the dangerous effects of urban heat islands, higher average temperatures, and extended heat waves, is it wise to, it is wise. It is wise. This is a statement. It is wise to identify ways in which the development industry can leverage new building technologies to lessen the impact of extreme heat. What 2 actions will you take as mayor to prepare our city and residents for extreme heat and ensure those most vulnerable are protected? Again, Heidi, Matt, and Freddie in that sequence. You have 45 seconds.
Such a timely question with the heat dome that's about to land over us when we go outside today. So we have such great technology that we don't take advantage of, and anybody who's been to sustainable cities knows this. Smart city technology and also, of course, renewable energy are the first steps, I think, to making sure that we're combating that. But there are so many other things that we can look at, and I think having an electric fleet and also having our grid communicating with itself so that we can maximize energy efficiency are 2 good ideas.
Thank you. Matt.
Accelerate Root Nashville. Accelerate. I'm loud. Accelerate Root Nashville. Look, there are massive things that are happening sort of globally with temperatures, but the way we can impact our local footprint is by planting more trees. That reduces heat islands. It creates the minor oases within the community. There is an ambitious plan that's been laid out. The job of the mayor is to bring people together to achieve big visions. And Root Nashville is exactly that. As mayor, I will help the team that's planting trees pick up the pace to involve the private sector. The government can do pieces, but we all have to do this together, and the mayor is uniquely positioned to pull people together. So for heat islands locally, Root Nashville.
Thank you. Freddie.
One of the simplest and most effective heat mitigation strategies in urban areas is white roofs. It's a simple thing that we can start doing and establish a standard and protocol for, and it actually goes hand in hand with the other thing, which is my favorite partnership with Councilmember Hurt on the Metro Council, which was establishing home energy uplift to create a weatherization program for vulnerable Nashvillians. It's also a workforce development program for people who need to have access to green jobs. These 2 things going hand in hand will be a great initiative.
Thank you. We're going to move on to everybody's favorite topic, Metro Development Review Process. I know. Get ready. Let's talk about that. Communities are feeling the impacts of disasters and are asking for designers, architects, engineers, and built environment professionals to help design communities to withstand potential hazards so that safety and quality of life are not degraded but enhanced. What 2 issues is the Metro Development Review Process not considering when it comes to environmental resilience that must be considered? And I did conceal who was answering this question just so you could all just be at the edge of your seats. This is for Jim, Vivian, Sharon, and Jeff. And we're going to start with you, Jim.
So it's a challenge, I think, to think about what we've charged planning with. But what I hear over and over again is that each individual project is considered as an individual project rather than as a comprehensive development plan. And that is a plan that incorporates what is the long-term infrastructure, what is the long-term transportation, what is the long-term transit plan associated with each decision that we make. Now, we're moving in that direction, but we still have a ways to go because they're in a situation where they're having to make decisions on projects, and we have not necessarily made the necessary infrastructure investments. And that's what we need to get in front of.
Thank you. And Jim, you intuited 45 seconds on this one. Thank you so much. Vivian, you're up.
Well, we don't think these projects out to the end. What is the unintended consequence in reference to how we get there? We need to continue to think these projects out to the very end and make sure that the unintended consequences of overdensity, the unintended consequence of underdevelopment of infrastructure, because we're putting a lot of cart before the horse. So what's missing is not looking at the issue all the way to the end and ensuring that we are not creating unintended consequences, which is what we have today and which is what we've been doing, kicking the can down the road.
Thank you. Sharon, you're next.
Actually, I think it has been a lack of intentionality and deliberate activity. I think we've been exclusive, and we have not looked at the impact that it has on those forgotten communities. We don't want to leave any block or any community behind, and I don't think that we really think about that. And we need to make sure that we are inclusive. Actually, and I also think that there's overdevelopment because we've got water main breaks all over and so many different things that are happening that we did not prepare for. And I think that if we were to talk to people in the communities, that we would find that we should go in a different direction than what we have so far.
Thank you, Sharon. So I'm just going to repeat this. It's what two issues is Metro Development Review process not considering when it comes to environmental resilience?
All people and intentionality.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just repeating it for Jeff. But thank you, Sharon. See, you gotta give it get it right. Get a second hurrah there. Okay. Jeff.
So I actually think that Sharon makes a really important point on intentionality, and I feel like there is a lack of coherence to what occurs in various parts of the community. I mean, I think that it can feel very one-off in the way we do developments where it changes based on who's in the council at any given moment in a particular district, where there are certain negotiations that are happening, and it depends. People feel in the community that there's too many, that there's relationships rather than policy and rules leading to the outcomes. So I think that intentionality and coherence is a huge piece. Then fundamentally, we should be thinking much more about how we are designing the place in order to accommodate the transit and connectivity needs across the city and how it's going to work going forward.
Thank you. We are going to move on to a fun breather exercise, which is a 15-second lightning round before we move on to another thrilling topic, organizational management. But we're going to have a little recreational breather, 15 seconds each. Everybody gets this. I think we already know Alice's answer. But the question is, what is your favorite park or open space in Nashville? Jim, you're going to start.
So I'm on the Friends of Warner Park board, so I have a conflict.
Fort Negley.
Yeah, Sevier Park, but Beeman Park is a close second.
We became connoisseurs during the pandemic, but the Richmond Park Greenway, which is across the street from my house.
Percy Warner Park, because they have educational programs for homeschool students and public school.
I love Hadley Lillard Park since I had it renamed, and it was the first park for Black Americans in the country. But I really love the Bicentennial Mall Park because it has so much information about the state of Tennessee, and Kim Hinton did a fabulous job on it.
Thank you. Stephanie.
One of my favorite parks from when I was a kid is Cedar Hill Park. I also love Madison Park and Peeler Park and Two Rivers Park since I have time.
That's right. Fill up those 15 minutes. There are a lot of parks to love. Heidi.
Radnor Lake, it's where I live. We have a great rehabilitation aviary. 2 years in a row now, we've had baby bald eagles born there. And if you have not been out there, I highly recommend you come visit.
Thank you.
Shelby Park, it's got public art, an amazing nature center, greenways where you don't even know you're close to downtown, an outdoor natural playground, and incredible programs and staff.
Thank you.
The Bicentennial Park, I love how they've celebrated how desegregation has bring about the togetherness in reference to the story about the pool. I've been very inspired by that and how people who are very knowledgeable of that time have grown together.
Thank you. Moving on to organizational management. This question is for Alice, Natisha, and Freddie. You have 45 seconds to answer. And the question is this. The declaration is this. Share 2 steps you would take to improve efficiency, transparency, and to encourage innovation within metro departments related to growth, development, and resource protection. Alice, you will begin.
So as an entrepreneur, I think that we have a really exciting moment in front of us. While it is difficult that the city council will be cut in half, it actually gives us an opportunity to completely rethink how we organize our zoning, planning, and structure of our city government. And so to me, I think it begins with saying, how are we customer focused in what we're thinking about? Not whose department does the land belong to, but what is its highest and best use for the city, both in the quality of life for the citizens that live here, but also in raising revenue that we need. How are we zoning and supporting it so that it is contributing to the needs of the city for infrastructure and long-term growth?
Thank you. Natisha.
Healthy choice, the right choice. One of the right choices would be to move these permits. We have a lot of developers that are trying to get involved in the help of affordable income-based housing, but they can't get their permits. So I'd like to have transparency on what's going on in the permit department. And then with the council, make sure that we have advisory committee that is consistent of those all around Nashville, not just downtown, Antioch, Inglewood, I call it Brantioch, that's where I live, Brentwood, Davidson side. But just make sure that we have representation from all over the county to protect our seniors, our disabled, and our special needs.
Thank you.
Let's move these permits.
Freddie.
On our website, you can check out a set of 15 fixes I proposed at readyforfreddie.com. And one of them is a big transparency initiative, actually. And years ago, I got the opportunity to travel to Salt Lake City, where Mayor Becker put together an incredible transparency initiative for the entire city that established expectations for both the public and public departments in terms of what to expect from community meetings, dashboards, those kinds of things. Meanwhile, I've been a part of the Metro Council initiative to inventory our public land, to understand what should be open, what should be buildable, and all of those things should be available to the public to understand what our opportunities are and also what progress we've been making as we've worked as a government.
Thank you. We're really cooking. This question is for Matt, Heidi, and Stephanie. And it's one that many of you have alluded to. What you will achieve as mayors, it depends heavily on the people on your team. The question for Matt, Heidi, and Stephanie in that order, which you have 45 seconds to answer, is this. How will you staff the teams that execute your sustainability goals? What specific qualities and experience will you look for in the people you select to lead these teams? Matt, starting with you.
Yeah. So let me commend the work that's being done in the mayor's office right now. Kendra Abkowitz, I think, is doing great leadership. I am not specifically endorsing anyone, but I think the traits and experience that she brings from the state have contributed to the success that they've had in the area of sustainability in the mayor's office. I think, look, the most important thing in sustainability, but really across the entire administration, is that every citizen everyone should feel like they have access to the mayor's office. And far too often that has not happened. And it is important to have geographic diversity, to have racial diversity, gender diversity, political diversity, because far too often folks feel disconnected from the mayor's office. So the sustainability team will need to fit into the overall fabric of the team.
Thank you. Heidi.
Yeah, I think that we need to make sure that we have, we're focusing on the sustainability of Metro because we have had a lot of churn. And that means that we have to maintain some institutional knowledge, but we also have to make sure that we're focused on leadership, communication, diversity amongst the team, and interdepartmental communication specifically. So I would like to set up a summit initially amongst the departments so that we can discuss issues for a couple of days. I don't think that's been done. And I think that that would be a great way for us to work out some of the issues that we've had with communication.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you. So my degree is actually in organizational leadership and management. So I love this topic. Also, I have a friend. She owns 2 refill stores here in Nashville. So the business community is a place where I would pull from. I have an acquaintance who is an environmentalist lawyer, and then a friend who's an economist. And so I would pull from the fears of influence because they all affect our environment. And then diversity, not only in skin color, background, age, but also in disabilities as well. Our neurodivergent friends, so like myself. So yes.
Thank you, Stephanie. We are moving on to the topic of state, regional, and federal relationships. This next question, we're going to kind of slim down your allotted time to 30 seconds. This next question is for Heidi, Matt, Alice, and Vivian. And the question is this. As mayor, what would you do on day one to facilitate a working relationship between a conservative state legislature and a progressive city council to avoid the tit-for-tat actions that have escalated in recent months? Starting with you, Heidi, then moving to Matt, Alice, and Vivian, 30 seconds each.
This is a great question for me because it's a why me? Why vote for me? So we need somebody in this office who has relationships with and an understanding of our state legislature. It's very tribal and it's about relationships. And also somebody who was a former mayor and served on the Regional Mayor's Council. Because those mayors are mostly Republican. They do not care about these ideological issues we fight about. They care about getting stuff done. So those relationships I already will be an asset in the mayor's office.
Thank you, Matt.
The breakdown in the relationship between the city and the state over the last several years is incredibly dangerous and terribly frustrating. Folks have been too focused on political food fights back and forth. Over the course of my career in the executive branch, I've built relationships between the city and the State Department of Economic and Community Development, between MDHA, where I worked, and the State Department, THDA. I have a proven track record of actually bringing folks together to achieve common goals, and I'll do that as mayor.
Alice.
Yeah, so the first step in recovery is admitting we have a problem. And in Nashville, we have a problem, right? We've got more debt than the entire state of Tennessee combined. Look at our budget. That is a problem. Our schools are ranked 95th out of 95 counties. That is a problem. So we need help, and we've got to work together. I am uniquely the only person to have worked at both the federal and the state level in Republican administrations and have the ability and have shown this in the campaign to get work with our regional mayors.
As the assessor of property, I would do exactly what I've been doing in my own office. When you take 2 employees that have a problem, I talk to them individually. I want to understand and let them know I hear you. And then I would take those different ideas or their concerns and bring them together. Because we're more common, we're more alike than we are different. But we have to search and look into the individual difference, bring about the likes, and seek a resolve. So I'm the first Black person in Davidson County. I'm the 3rd African American in the state of Tennessee. And out of 95 counties of Republicans, I've been able to sit in those rooms pretty freely.
Thank you. Okay. 30 seconds for Sharon, Jim, and Natisha on the next question. which is this. In your first 100 days, what 2 actions would you take to create stronger relationships between the mayor's office and specific regional partners to bolster sustainable growth? Sharon, we'll start with you.
Well, the first thing is that I would call a meeting and bring some of the best peach cobbler that they have ever had and have Mark Ezel to bring me some Purity ice cream. Because when people are full and they are happy, we can communicate. And I would definitely communicate with each one of them. And being communication means that you understand, you be understood. So you listen to what it is that they have concerns about and move forward and address that.
Thank you. 30 seconds to you, Jim.
So the Nashville mayor is the natural convener of folks across the state. So in the first 100 days, I'm going to get very involved in a series of meetings, whether or not it's with our surrounding counties and the mayors in those counties, but then also across the entire state, because the issues that we're talking about today affect every city in the state, big and small. And if we're going to address the overall state-city relationship, it's not just going to be Nashville alone. It has to be us as a coalition.
Thank you. This next question would, I'm sorry, Natisha, it's up over to you, please.
Well, Councilman Sharon, you're going to bring the peach cobbler, but I'm going to bring the sweet potato biscuits. I make the best sweet potato biscuits this side of the Mississippi, and some fried chicken. Listen, I'm going to make sure that in our first 100 days that we have representation from all areas of Nashville to work with any committee, any organization, including the ones that's sitting in front of us. It's very important that we hear. A good learner is a good listener, that we hear everyone's voices. So making sure that everyone is represented around Nashville in the communities.
Thank you. The next question is for Stephanie, Freddie, and Jeff. And it is as follows. You have 30 seconds to answer. What actions will you take to secure Nashville's share of the federal infrastructure funding present in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and other federal funding to ensure sustainable growth? And Stephanie, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Freddie and Jeff.
Can you repeat the first part?
Yes. What actions will you take to secure Nashville's share of the pie in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, and any other federal funding that you can get a hold of to ensure sustainable growth?
So I recently went to the GRNC meeting. It's a meeting where regional mayors sit at the table, and there's $3.1 billion that's up for grabs. And from the lady from TDOT was saying that, there's grants here you guys aren't applying. And so I really want to be aggressive about having people that are dedicated to writing those grants and ensuring that we have a model that we're just pushing it out and we're getting the money that is on the table. So
thank you, Stephanie. Freddie.
In our mayor's office, we'll have a director of revenue and partnerships to make sure that we are optimizing every single grant opportunity at the federal, state, and from nonprofit providers. And this will span all of Metro departments, but also catalyze the new leadership we have at the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee and other local nonprofits. I've already talked to Mayor Burke from Chattanooga, who's in the USDA right now, and there are opportunities for both IIJA and IRA for rural and urban partnerships. I've already also reached out to National League of Cities. We're going to be shovel ready on day one.
Thank you. Jeff.
People have focused a lot on the state relationship, but Nashville's next mayor is the first person to do the job when we don't have a sole congressional representative in Congress. It does actually change the job. You've got to build relationships like with my former colleague, Mark Green, with John Rhodes, with Andy Ogles, with our senators. And it also is going to matter that the mayor has relationships with the White House and with the Department of Transportation and some of those executive departments. We also have to get get further ahead on our planning so that when these opportunities come up, we know what we're seeking.
Thank you. We are moving on to the final two topics of the conversation. We have another lightning round, 15 seconds each for everyone. And the question is this, Vivian, I'm preparing you, you're first, and then we'll move down to Jim. The question is, what is your boldest idea to improve Nashville's infrastructure? You have 15 seconds, and Vivian, over to you.
My boldest idea to improve Nashville infrastructure is to ensure that we have the permitting process done, like not in just a couple of weeks, but in 3 days. I think that we need to move forward to be able to move forward. Oh, I'm sorry, it is a lightning round.
That's all right, thank you. Freddie.
Nashville will finally be a full-fledged NACTO city. We'll take advantage of urban design standards to make our infrastructure considerably safer. Last year was the deadliest year on record for pedestrians just trying to walk around the city. It's time for us to have infrastructure that looks and feels like a major American city.
Thank you. Heidi.
Expanding on smart city technology that's already been being invested in with people like Nashville Yards. That's very scalable, and that will be a priority because of the efficiencies and safety and congestion measures that we can gain from that.
Thank you. Stephanie.
So I always tell people in my first 100 days, I'm going underground because I want to see what's under there. I want to see the pipes myself. And infrastructure is not just sidewalks and roads. It's our power grid, our water, our trees. And so I want to see and assess all of it.
Thank you. Sharon.
I think what I'll do is bring some of my friends and family from Memphis who have been doing a marvelous job in maintaining and building up the infrastructure in Memphis and bring them here to help us evaluate what the best thing will be for us to do.
Thank you.
Let's get Nashville modern. New York, Chicago, San Francisco, top 3 in transit. We must start talking transit. My vision for Nashville is to start talking monorail. Let's go up instead of down.
Thank you, Natisha.
Nobody's going to really do anything bold when it comes to infrastructure unless they move back towards dedicated funding for us to pay for the infrastructure that we want. That is just true. And the next mayor has to start building a coalition. We can't change the transit strategy every 4 years with new mayors. We need a durable coalition that supports durable funding.
Matt.
In the first 100 days, we will begin working on dedicated lane bus rapid transit from the airport downtown via Murfreesboro Pike with affordable housing to come at transit stops. That can happen first, and then we have to work on dedicated funding after.
Thank you. Alice.
Yeah, backwards plan to have infrastructure transit vote either November 26 or November 28. And secondly, to map the aging infrastructure and recognize the cost in the same way that we recognize our long-term pension or healthcare liabilities as a city.
Thank you.
So it's not particularly bold, but we actually need to start doing things rather than just studying them. And whether that applies on basic infrastructure, that applies on transit, that applies on a lot of things, including affordable housing that Matt just mentioned.
Thank you. We have 2 more fairly quick questions or with brief answer windows, but then they will go to 5 candidates each. The first will go to Jim, Heidi, Jeff, Freddie, and Natisha. Again, you have 15 seconds to answer. And the question is this. Name one action you would take with the Middle Tennessee Mayoral Caucus or the Greater Nashville Regional Council to ensure transportation improvements in our area. Jim, you begin.
How long is this? I'm sorry. 15.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
15
so
seconds.
start to have a conversation about a regional solution because 90% of the population growth in the last 5 years has been in the surrounding counties. And if you look at who is parked downtown, it is increasingly people who are driving into town because they can't afford to live here.
Heidi.
So since I served on this body, I already know these people. I've already reached out to some of them about moving Radnor Yards, which was a TDOT study. You can go to my website, voteheidicampbell.com, to find out more about that.
Thank you. Jeff.
I actually want to go for a small win first. Every one of these places has state roads that with potholes that we can't fill, and the state isn't. We need to make sure that we can do that work and get reimbursed for it and build a relationship so that we can start planning bigger regional transit across the region.
Thank you. Freddie.
This is one of the most exciting things is for the mayor to be able to reinvest in regionalism. As a former board member of Cumberland Region tomorrow, we'll make sure we get them and the mayor's caucus coordinated with the coalition that just stood on the steps of City Hall to call for renewed investment in dedicated funding for transit.
Thank you. Natisha.
Well, with the mayor's caucus, let's talk about park to play, or park to play to eat. I'd like to readdress the parking issues downtown for our artists and our senior citizens and our disabled and special needs individuals.
Thank you. We have one more of those questions, 15 seconds each, to Vivian, Stephanie, Alice, Matt, and Sharon. And the question is as follows. Addressing climate change requires more than resilience. It also requires aggressive energy policy. How will you work with energy providers to green our regional energy grid? Green is a verb. And Vivian, we'll start with you and move from there.
I will work with them by listening. My mother gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you all got the same thing. So you listen twice as much as you speak. I will hear whether the common concerns in reference to trying to make it better. That's what I would do.
Thank you. Stephanie.
So once again, the Sustainability Committee, they put in their recommendation that we have to think the words ecological something off our grid. And so they're working on a plan with that.
Decarbonize or?
Decarbonize?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so I've been trying to get in contact with TVA and NES, and I don't like the responses that I'm getting. And so that would definitely be one of my first meetings to really sit down and talk about the plans that they put out and what's going to happen. Because asking us to raise our air to 78 degrees, I don't like that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie. Alice.
It seems to me from the group that hosted this study that about half of our emissions are around buildings and half in transportation. So I think continuing to do what we can at the city level to invest in green building technologies makes sense. And then to encourage the private sector where it makes sense for them.
Thank you. Matt.
I will renew the commitment I made earlier that we'll expand the solar field to get more of the energy for Nashville from solar. The pricing's lined up. It makes sense. We have great companies here that are working on that. We've made significant investments in the state. It should have happened already. Not it should. We are well on the way, and we will continue that progress.
Thank you. And Sharon.
I would work with EPA and some folk in Memphis because especially with the TVA, and because I have that program that Freddie mentioned and I was able to get it through, I'd use my influence with NES to make sure that we all got that done. And the other question about my bold thing, I really want to say I'm going to have a forensic audit of all departments, but I just didn't want to say it.
Thank you. Well, Sharon, you got 3 extra seconds there, and I think it was warranted. Thank you so much. Okay, final topic, attainable and income-based housing. And we're going to begin with a lightning round, 15 seconds each. And the question is as follows. We will start with you, Jim. What are your top 2 actions to address housing affordability? Take it away.
We need to consistently fund the Barnes Fund, but that's not enough. We should not be the most difficult city to build affordable housing in if you're a private developer. We need to totally streamline the permitting process as well as provide more significant financial incentives and more creative financial incentives for those who are seeking to do this.
Thank you.
Yep. First is not to raise taxes. That makes our more affordable housing stock less affordable and makes owners pass those costs along to renters. The second is to look at the organization of the city government. When you've got planning, codes, and public works in different verticals, it makes it very difficult to get things done.
Thank you.
So when I was in the mayor's office, we already provided prioritization for affordable housing developments within the permitting process, and that's been great. It's a good step, but we need to go further. We need to work with the public sector and the private sector, and the public sector continue to invest in redevelopment of public housing into mixed income housing, and then continue to encourage private development through tax incentives.
Thank you. Jeff?
Look, we have to build more housing, make it easier to build more housing. We need to clean up, speed up, and facilitate the growth of some of that residential development through our inspecting, coding, planning process, and we have to raise our ambition because we're losing it faster than it's coming online.
Thank you. Natisha?
Take our property taxes back to where they were pre-COVID. That will help with some rental relief for those. We are #1 in evictions in the United States. And then 2, make sure that businesses that come in here leave their checks at the door to help with those developers that are wanting to build income-based housing.
Thank you.
So I want to make everybody in Nashville who wants to be a millionaire, because we're about to have an economic tsunami and we want to put people in place so they can afford to live wherever they want to, do whatever they want to do. And I will take the underutilized land and underutilized vacant buildings and build some housing.
Thank you, Sharon. Stephanie?
So NOAA is really key for me. NOAA is naturally occurring affordable housing, and we do not take a stock of that very well. And so one of my plans has been to put in our affordable housing stock that's already out there into Mayor Cooper's accountability tracker.
Thank you.
A full survey of our public lands with the goal towards eliminating departmental territoriality, and then also streamlining efficiency in our permitting and planning process.
Thank you.
Transit is affordable housing policy. I'm excited that we've already done part of this work by fighting for $2.8 million in the existing budget that the mayor will take effect when taking office in October to expand crosstown service. This is a big deal for commutes and affordability. We'll also use the coordinating power of the mayor's office to maximize enrollment in Metro's property tax freeze and relief program.
Thank
As
you.
a first to make the statement, I would, as the assessor property, have identified more than 200 vacant properties so that we can have work with public and private partnerships to build affordable housing, as well as vacant buildings. And lastly, we will increase the tax rate, increase the tax relief program income so that more seniors can qualify. Definitely not increase the tax rate.
Thank you. So my understanding is we do not have time for audience questions, correct? But we do have time for closing statements after these last 2 lightning rounds. Is that right?
Yeah, we didn't get audience. We got one audience question on the Nashville Highland Rim, which we addressed earlier.
Okay.
And so, in order to close at 10:30, we'll go to
The closing statements. Okay. We are going to. Actually, we can do 2 lightning rounds before the closing statements, correct? Okay, just one more? Okay, we're going to give you a moment to talk about yourselves, which I know you're just totally uncomfortable with. But we would love to hear about how you bring environmental resilience and sustainable values into your everyday life. And we're going to start with you, Jim. We're going to come down to Vivian, and then we will go to closing statements. And I think you can probably do this in 15 seconds. Fair enough? I mean, let's do 20. Let's stretch it to 20. So yeah, how do you bring these sensibilities into your own personal life, Jim?
So look, I am a huge proponent of green space. It's why I'm on the Friends of Warner Park board. It's why every time we have had the opportunity to plant trees, I'm personally out planting trees. It is, and if you're looking for me on a weekend, you're more than likely to find me on a trail, whether or not it's in Warner Park, Beaman Park, Shelby Park.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our family has probably been concerned about the health of the Cumberland River and our property there for probably going on 80 years now. And so it doesn't take much for me to wake up and to look for my kids and to hope that they, like with my grandparents, are able to preserve that park as an agricultural place, which actually takes quite a bit of work to keep Metro out.
Thank you.
As I was growing up, my family had a farm out in Houston County, and I grew up working in the garden, growing our own food. And we have taught, Chrissy, my wife and I have taught our kids the importance of food, composting, of recycling, and making sure that we have a sustainable planet long term. And that's important for us all to continue to invest in.
Thank you.
I grew up farming, so I tried not to do that. So our family goes through the weekly, monthly rigmarole of trying to recycle glass, do metro recycling, composting, which I think anybody who does that knows it's difficult, enjoy our green spaces, and then I devote a lot of my professional life to this very part of this very priority.
Thank you.
You'll find me at the YMCA or Percy Warner Park going up the Rocky Steps. I call them the Rocky Steps. If you can make it up, if you can make it down, great. But besides that, eating, it's called Fresh Starts in Hillsborough Village. LGBTQ small business owner. He prepares meals for you, and all you have to do is just pull the meals out, 380 calories or less for chicken, steak,
Thank you.
or shrimp, I believe.
It's hard to cut that off. Thank you.
So I grew up with a mother from Mississippi and a father from Arkansas. So my entire life has been about resilience and sustainability. So I educate, advocate, and I execute in my daily life.
Thank you.
So I have a small business, skincare business, and we're a low-waste business where I do biodegradable gloves, glass jars. Also, I have roommates called my family, so we live in one house together. And then recycling and zero-waste shopping.
Thank you.
The reason I'm involved in politics to begin with I was saving a hill on the Highland Rim. I saved 20,000 acres of hardwood forest last year. We saved the Duck River. I'm the environmental lead for the legislature on NCSL. It is my primary focus. If we don't have a habitable planet, everything else is irrelevant.
For more than 20 years, I've subscribed to Green Power through TVA's Green Switch. Check it out, TVA.com, for as little as $4 a month. You too can do this. Even better, we have Music City Solar, which I've subscribed to since it existed. Pays you back a credit on your electric bill. My first car was a bike and a bus. When I was finally in an actual car, it was a biofuel vehicle that I traded for a car seat friendly zero-emission vehicle, which I've driven for more than a decade when I have to drive.
Thank you. I don't know if you might consider some kind of radio jockey role or something, but Vivian.
As the mother in my household, I am constantly always looking for ways to having my family to be saving in various ways. We have 5 recycle cans. We have 1 trash can. And I'm constantly talking about that we don't need the trash can. We just need to recycle. I'm looking for ways to do food composting, but I don't have the time. But lastly, there's this new product called Breeze. It keeps the big cans of the Tide and the different detergents out of the landfill. They're thin sheets. You put them in the washer, you put them in the dryer, and you can get your clothes clean. It's amazing, and you can get a stack of 20 loads in one pack.
You're going to get. You can talk more about the sheets because I
great
think
for the
there's
environment.
Great demand for more info about the sheets, and we're going to just start right there because we are at closing statements, correct? And can everybody get 45 seconds for that? Okay, 45 seconds. Vivian, we really want to hear more about those sheets, but you can.
I do want to tell you all about them. They're great. I'm Vivian Wilhoit, come from Gulfport, Mississippi, been here 42 years. I'm your current assessor of property, and I oversee an $8.1 million budget. I have 85 amazing staffers, and I would love to be able to put to work the rules and the type of environment that we have created in the assessor's office. It's been amazing. They are family, and we can make Metro Nashville family. Again, we just have to be intentional in reference to what we want to do, whether it's supporting public safety, whether it's supporting public education, whether it's supporting our Metro employees, all of the things that all of us has been talking about. But we must be intentional. And you want someone that has the energy to do that. I see you. I believe that people matter, and you matter. And I look forward to letting you know how much you matter. I'm Vivian Wilhoit. I'm Vivian on my signs, and I ask you for your votes.
Thank you.
My name is Freddie O'Connell, and I'm excited to be running for mayor of Nashville for many of the reasons this panel explored. For 20 years or more, my lived experience, my professional experience, and my civic experience have allowed me to be on the president of the board of Walk Bike Nashville, the chair of the board of Nashville MTA, a board member of Cumberland Region Tomorrow, to develop a renewable portfolio standard for Metro, to have stronger green building standards for new and renovated buildings than we've ever had, and to have our trajectory for a zero-emission fleet of vehicles. It is possible and necessary for cities to lead on climate and resilience. We had an Office of Resiliency under a previous mayoral administration. It did flood mitigation, but it also did disaster preparedness. It is so important for cities to be well-designed and well-run. I'm excited to earn your votes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Heidi.
I'm a Vanderbilt MBA, business owner, former singer in a band, former mayor, a current state senator, but it really is the mom that drives me, because I'll tell you, when my kids are sick, I will do absolutely anything I can to get them better. When my city is struggling, I will do anything I can to help my city. And that's what drives me. And so I do not see this as a CEO position. I see this as a venture catalyst to catalyze communication position. And I will just leave you with my website, voteheidicampbell.com, and tell you that I think Nashville needs a mom.
Thank you. Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie Johnson, and I am a 7+ generation Tennessean. Some of my family were sharecroppers, and so I have a deep reverence for the land. I spent 15+ years developing nonprofits across the country, doing different things from emancipated foster youth to pet shelters, so anything and everything I've stood up for. I also stood up for the Amazon forest because I understand what happens over there happens here. And so we need to be the shining light on the hill. That's an example for not only our community, but for the rest of the world. And so it is of utmost importance that we put this topic first because we're running out of time.
Thank you.
So I'm the youngest of 7, so I learned recycling from food to clothes. The culture has changed, but the politics have not. Nothing changes if nothing changes. We have some that say that we need a CEO, we need a nonprofit leader, we need a mom, we need a metro legislator. I'm all of those and a grandmom. And so many aunties for so many people. But I want you to know that nothing changes if nothing changes. I am for people, preservation, and prosperity. Our city needs to reflect in its leadership what it does within its city. Sharon Hurt for Nashville.com.
Natisha Brooks, 16 Twitter. Let's make history together and send an educator, retired educator, 33 years, special needs, emphasis on autism. And I thank myself for my service, and I hope you do too. We need someone as a mayor that's going to bridge all of us together, especially with the organization sitting right in front of us. Creek Critters. I'm a big STEM person. Science, chemistry is my major. From an HBCU, Prairie View A&M University, of the Texas A&M University system. So it's very important that a healthy choice, the right choice, as Senator Frist would say. My name is Natisha. They call me Natisha R. Miss Brooks, the teacher, asking you for your vote.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Yarbrough, and I'm asking for your vote to be the next mayor. Look, for the last few minutes, you've been listening to lots of candidates give you lots of ideas, identify lots of challenges, and if we could just govern with this panel in this room, we know we could do sustainability well. But that's not the real world, and I think we all know that. The next mayor is going to face much more complicated politics than getting agreement in this auditorium. And you need somebody who's going to show commitment to this issue and somebody who knows how to get things done. For the last 9 years, I have been working for this city at the state level, achieving progress on green infrastructure for our water system, on recycling processes, on resilience in a place that doesn't even believe in climate change. So I think there's no telling what kind of leadership I can bring working in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Belmont, for hosting this. And thank you to the partner organizations for putting it on. Thank you especially to Catherine and Jennifer, the timekeepers, the impossible task. And you guys are amazing. Thank you. And thank you to each of you for caring enough about this issue to spend part of your morning with us. We're up here running for mayor. You all are choosing to invest your time in this city, and that is an inspiration for each of us. So thank you to you. My name is Matt Wilshire. For those of you who don't know me, I was a director of the Mayor's Office of Economic and Community Development. then worked in affordable housing at MDHA, and before that had a 15-year career in business. I believe that I bring the public, private, and nonprofit executive level experience to lead this city, and I'd be grateful to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get that? Okay, thank you. Hi, Alice Rowley, and I'm delighted today that we got to talk about the Cumberland River. I talk frequently about my motivation in running. The Cumberland River Compact established this city and region's government, and I think it's time to reset that compact between our citizens and our city hall. I am a Nashville native, the wife of a combat veteran, a former state and federal official for both Governor Bill Haslam and U.S. Senator Lamar Alexander. And I've also spent about 15 years helping entrepreneurial companies grow well. And so after many decades of electing the same people and expecting a different result, I think that our city is ready for a change. I'd encourage you to look at our campaign, alicerowley.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in this election, we've been talking about a lot of issues, whether or not it's some of the failures to invest in infrastructure as we've grown, but also issues of housing affordability, safety, schools. Everybody on this stage is going to tell you that they're pro those types of issues. The issue is we've been talking about these same issues as a city for over a decade. If you go back and watch the 2015 Mayoral Forum that David Plazas moderated, there are only three things that have changed. One, he has a few more gray hairs. Two, is that every one of those issues is now worse. And three, we are spending as a city 70% more per resident than we spent 10 years ago. You need to elect somebody who has the courage, capability, and know-how to actually begin to get things done. I am the only candidate that has ever led something of the size of Metro, both in terms of number of people and budget.
Thank you all. We did it. Thank you to the candidates, again, for your participation. And Belmont University, thank you so much for hosting this event, and to the Urban Land Institute of Nashville, to the American Institute of Architects, Middle Tennessee, and to the Cumberland River Compact for organizing this forum. Thank you so much to this very patient and great-spirited audience. We so appreciate you being here today. Key dates. I know this gets thrown out, but we can't say it enough. If you haven't registered to vote, you have until July 5th to do so. And we have cards out front with more information. Early voting begins July 14th, and the election is August 3rd. Thank you all so much. Good luck.
Thank you. And thank you for moderating.
Thank you. A pleasure. A pleasure.